talking with a whole lot of truth. Remedy Revolution is here for you. Ooh. And now here's your host, Aaron Page.
Welcome to the Remedy Revolution podcast. My name is Erin, and today we're going to dive deep into a really deeply personal experience with our healthcare system. And I really want to kind of go into some of that and dive deeper into the broader issue of medical freedom and kind of what that means to me, as well as many other leaders in the community. But before I go into that story, I just wanted to take a moment and tell you about one of our most popular episodes with Teresa Holler on mold and the Pans and Pandas connection. So believe it or not, it is still one of the most downloaded episodes. I get questions about this episode all the time. One of the things I like to tell people is that Teresa recommends a number of products. Most of those products can be found at nutramedics.com. And I am happy to announce that I have secured a 10% discount for all of our listeners. You can go ahead to nutramedics.com, type in the code REMEDY for 10% off. For those of you who have listened to the podcast since its inception, I am so grateful to you. I really thank you dearly. If you have found value in even just one episode, I would please ask you, rate us, send us a review. That means the world to us. It is hugely beneficial to the podcast, helps us reach more people, and it does not cost you one red cent. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about this story. My father is 80 years old. He is diabetic. He has been to, he's had a hip surgery, hip replacement surgery. He has also had a stent as well as a valve replacement on his heart. So, he is currently quite overweight, I would say morbidly obese in clinical terms. And so, there are a number of things that we've been trying to do to assist him over the years. Certainly, as many of you know, if you've ever tried to take care of a family member, it can be actually much more challenging than taking care of a patient. So I decided that it was going to be important for me to walk into his doctor's appointment with him. He's recently started seeing a new practitioner. Her superior retired, my dad's old doctor. And so um, I went in with him to this visit and I didn't know what to expect, to be honest. I have not visited a, more conventional medical office in quite some time. So um, I was almost excited, I guess, to see what would be the outcome. Um, so it was really interesting. So obviously there were a lot of issues that we had come in with prior. My dad has been on a number of medications. Some of those medications help to control diabetes. Others he had been on a statin for a while, much to my chagrin. But, ultimately, I really just wanted to help him understand what was going on with him physically and how we might be able to either reduce some of the prescription medications or get him into a healthier place. He still has great difficulty moving. And so that's, obviously one of the number one priorities. So I sat in the doctor's office. The doctor came in very young, very green, obviously, fresh out of residency, which is fine. And my dad asked her a couple of questions, and her response was that she wanted to go over the medication first that he was taking. So um, she first asked about the statin. My dad said that he had stopped taking it. This was at my request. He did stop taking it. His cholesterol levels did go up. And I said to her, she looked at me pointedly and said, why is he not taking the statin? And I said, well, frankly, because I'm very well aware of his risk of Alzheimer's, given the fact that his parents, his mother in particular, suffered greatly with Alzheimer's and dementia. And I know that lower cholesterol levels are actually correlated with Alzheimer's, so that's a big concern. So not only that, but the research on statins and LDL with regard to heart disease is very flimsy. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of a connection there. So I didn't feel like it was necessary for him to be on that statin. I think it's more important that we focus on getting him to eat whole foods and move his body. And anyway, she just moved on, looked at me, and then moved on to talking about the metformin, which is the diabetes drug that he was on. Again, very it was very strange. So she said, "Oh, well, your diabetes numbers look much better." So, he's been on metformin for a number of years. Diabetes numbers for him tend to go up and down. No real overall improvement throughout the years. But in this most recent blood work, it seemed that there had been a little bit of a decrease in his numbers. So anyway, she said, well, it looks like we are managing the diabetes. At that point, I looked at her and I said, well, I don't know that we really want to be managing the diabetes with medication, right? Like, shouldn't we be focusing on lifestyle changes and things of that nature? And I said, not to mention the fact that though I know that it's controversial, even amongst, you know, many different groups, I do find that there's a potential benefit for things like the GLP-1 agonists, for weight loss in somebody like my father, who is diabetic, quite obese, and unable to move. And she looked at me and she said, well, I don't usually recommend that for someone his age. So you can imagine, at this point, I was quite frustrated. I was trying my best to be cordial. However, in my mind, I'm thinking, how is it that we are sitting in front of this doctor, and her priority is to bring down his numbers with medication and not to assist him in losing the weight, which would make the diabetes go away and reduce the need or negate the need for the diabetes medication altogether. And I sat there and I thought about it for a long time. And the mentality has become to really think about prescriptions over people. And, I should have asked her, I didn't, if that was the course of action that she would take if it was her father sitting in front of her. Because it's almost as if we've taken the human aspect completely out of healthcare. We're looking at numbers and not at people anymore. And in fact, as we walked out, my dad asked, well, what did you think of the new doctor? And I said, Dad, you have a dealer, not a healer. And it's hard for me to say that because, this young girl, I'm sure that that's not why she went into medicine. I'm sure she really feels like she's helping people. Um, and in some cases, maybe she is. But the fact that she didn't even want to consider assisting my dad in getting healthier simply because he's 80 years old, it didn't make sense to me. Why aren't we trying to help people survive and thrive, not just, you know, waste away and throw drugs at them until they die? To me, that just didn't make any sense. And it kind of brought into question some of the bigger picture things for me. You know, not only is our medical system completely broken, from the ground up, right? Like, this was a brand new doctor, just out of residency. She probably thinks that she's doing the right thing because she's reading the Merck manuals and all of those kinds of things. I understand that she's doing what she's been taught, but what are we teaching these people? Like, what are we teaching this new generation of doctors? And how can we do it better? There's so many questions I have. Um, but I'll kind of leave it at that. I wanted you guys to hear that story and to think about what that means to you. I'd love to hear your comments. Ultimately, though, it made me start thinking about something else that been hearing a lot about. And, those of you who know me know that I've been a pretty staunch advocate for medical freedom for a very long time, probably 18 years. I don't know that I was as vocal, um, back then as I am now. Certainly, most people in my inner circle knew what my views were, and I wasn't afraid to voice those views. I didn't always voice them necessarily in a public forum until a few years ago. So ultimately, here's my take on it. So there's a lot of controversy going around, people saying that, you know, we need to immediately pull the COVID vaccine from the market. All of the COVID vaccines, we have to pull them. They're causing injuries. And well, I don't disagree with the fact that they are causing injuries. We are seeing those injuries. Um, I have a little bit of a different take on it because the term medical freedom is and always has meant that we allow people to do the things that they would like to do. Um, they make the choices for their bodies. And some people are never going to not make that choice. Some people are always going to want to have the COVID vaccines. Some people want booster number 25. And to pull that away from them is then to create more animosity and infighting, which I believe actually hurts the movement and the idea behind medical freedom. Because if we take away the thing that they are so staunchly and really religiously tied to, then we are and continue to be enemy number one. And so while I understand, for example, that like when we have, a pharmaceutical drug, of which vaccines are part of that category, by the way, I think a lot of times we think we hear the word vaccine and it immediately goes into a different category for some reason. But vaccines are pharmaceutical products, just like any of the other products, like Vioxx, which I took for not for very long. I think I only took about a week's worth or 2 weeks worth of Vioxx. But we're talking about drugs that are indeed causing harm. Many of the drugs that were on the market, such as Vioxx, were on the market for a very long time before they were pulled off the market. And that was with significant data, significant litigation, all of these kinds of things, right? And so when we are talking about pulling every single COVID vaccine on the market, we need to do this immediately. And I think we create more enemies. And ultimately, I think the game is played via transparency. And here's what I mean by that. So if all of a sudden we said, we know, for example, that fast food isn't good for us. But if all of a sudden the US government came in and said, okay, well, we're going to shut down every single fast food restaurant across the country tomorrow, there would be a huge uproar. Not necessarily because people think that fast food is good for them, but because they want to have the choice. So I am a firm believer in medical freedom. And medical freedom means the freedom to choose the things that you would like to choose to put into your body. And that might be an unpopular opinion. I know that there are many people out there who are very angry and upset and want these products pulled from the market. But to be honest, I feel like we will find out a lot more information if we open the doors to transparency, and we will prevent a lot of future injury that way. If we go in and we pull everything off the market, the US government comes in and pulls everything off the market, we create a barrier to learning the truth. Anyway, that's my take on it. I think, we are in a scenario where our healthcare system really needs a massive, massive overhaul. And I'm probably preaching to the choir. I know that most of you guys understand that. But I think that that overhaul comes by way of transparency. Because as soon as people see the truth, right? Like, let's just say, I think there was at one point, and I could be wrong, but I think there was at one point, I think it's in Europe or some other European country, where they had the manufacturers ended up having to put like all the different bad ingredients or bad side effects from the ingredients, whatever it was. I'll have to look this up. But anyway, had to put something on the label that essentially gave you the information about the health impacts of whatever that product was. And the sales plummeted. I think the same thing will occur in our society when we know what these products are doing, when we understand what they are doing. If you walked into a McDonald's and there was a big huge sign that said, consuming these foods might cause cancer, obesity, blah blah blah, diabetes, all of these things, and uh, then gave you like the calories and the fat content and all of these things of all of their products. Um, I mean, my guess is if you're standing there looking at a menu with all of all of that information, you might choose differently. I mean, I don't know. It would be certainly an interesting experiment. I know some of the chains or chain restaurants have actually done some of that. Um, but it would be very interesting to know what things people would change voluntarily if they understood the impacts. So I think in conclusion, I just really want to say that, ultimately, when we're talking about freedom, just like freedom of speech, we talk a lot about being free to say the thing that nobody wants to hear, because that's the thing that gets criticized the most, right? That's the thing that people want to censor, not the happy thing, not the lovely thing, not the positive, sunshine and rainbows thing. So I think we need to take all of this, look at it from this wide angle lens, and understand that freedom comes by way of transparency. When we have all the facts, just like with freedom of speech, when we have all the facts, when we have all of the information, that's when we feel free. And I think the same is true of all of these medical products. I think we need to understand that while we might be angry and we might be infuriated and we might have people we love who are injured, that we have to understand that in order to enact real fundamental change from the ground up, we have to allow transparency in order to then have freedom. Thanks everybody for listening. Please, if you like this show, if you find any value in it, give us a 5-star review. It helps us more than you know. It helps us to grow this show and to continue to bring on guests that you know and love. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you all next time. Take care.
With hope as a guiding light, through darkest days we'll fight the night. With a whole lot of passion, with a whole lot of truth, Remedy Revolution is here for you.